been scheduled for like a month and a half. Um,
I
I
started the
just
stream, by the way. Just
okay, cool.
uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, we can talk more about Howard. I'm interested. His site says the truth at any cost, including the cost of life. So interesting lead in, I guess, to philosophy. You said you were just saying, what was it? Omnology.
Omnology.
Omnology. Is that what you're saying? Is basically your field of study or expertise?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So basically, his premise is that okay. So I'll explain some backstory stuff. So one thing that I know from having read a couple history of philosophy books, in back in the day, everything was called philosophy, right? There were not separate fields. You had philosophy, and that included
Mm-hmm.
math, religion, science, geometry, like physics. Everything was philosophy, right? And so then when things get fleshed out, they become their own field. Um, However, the problem with that is when things become their own field, people become super specialized. And as a result, you lose the ability to have lots of cross domain knowledge, which is really where good ideas come from, right? There are basically two kinds of ideas, which is like invention and innovation, right? Invention is you can't come up with something totally new, and that's generally going to come more out of like most honestly, most inventions are accidents. There's a book I had when I was a kid called Foul Facts About Science, and they just explain like almost every famous invention is an accident. Like X-rays, Post-it notes. The Post-it note one is my favorite
Post-it
story because,
notes.
yeah. So there was
Was he trying to make
a guy.
stamps and they just didn't go on all the way? And
No,
it's like, this is
it's poetic,
genius.
right? So there's a guy who worked at 3M, and he was trying to make the world's strongest glue, and he failed completely.
I
He
have
actually
heard
made
this story. That's
the
right.
world's weakest glue. And
Oof.
so he had
That's a big
his
rip, man. Failing up.
yeah, he had his priest or whatever, who had like 40 note cards in the Bible. They would fall out all the time, every day. He's like a clumsy guy. So he's like, well, what if we stuck them on the note cards? And there you go. They invented a whole company because of that, because of a terrible mistake, right? Um, X-rays were an accident. Marie Curie obviously killed herself discovering like radium or whatever. She gave herself cancer. Yeah, I used to know more of them, but like almost everything new is an accident. Um, that's one way to do stuff. The other thing is incremental innovation, and a lot of incremental innovation comes out of specialists, right? So
Mm-hmm.
think about Moore's law, right? Computer chips decreasing in size. We still haven't hit Moore's law yet, where it's like we're going to hit the finite amount, and they keep getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's ridiculous, right? Um, but real
I heard that
big
Moore's
deal
law is
things.
dead. I don't know. We shouldn't get into that right
I
now, but
uh,
I heard Moore's law is dead just because of where we're at, and I was surprised, but it kind of makes sense. Like now we're branching into something totally different.
um,
It's not about size as much. Like quantum computing is a
I
potential, but
I was thinking about that, but like with business and like organizations is like everyone has to improve and get better or transform, but you have to do it in a way that isn't an encumbrance. Like when you work in all these organizations or you tell someone, "Oh, you need to work more here, do more there." It's like everyone's like, "Ah, no." Because they already feel like they're doing enough or too much as it is. So it's like how do you totally just like quantum leap to like orders of magnitude either efficiency, performance or just alignment, you know? And it's basically asking the impossible, right? It's like trying to get better by like doing less, like doing more
well,
by doing less.
this is a good question, and that pushes us in a good direction too. So, I was reading this article. I don't know if I'll be. Let me see. I might be able to find it. I know I followed the guy on Twitter, but his Twitter account is locked.
you
So if
got
I
your
can find
video
that
on,
guy, then
Caballo?
I can find his account. Oh, I tried to follow him, and he didn't. His account is locked, and he didn't let me follow him back. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find him. Damn it! It was a
Hmm.
really good article. So basically, one of the things this guy was talking about in the article is that in biology, basically all improvements come with a cost, right? And he was asking the question, like, why hasn't nature optimized for increasing intelligence, right? people are very smart, but they're not getting insanely smarter. And so there's been basically like in the amount of time, the 100 years or so that the IQ test has been around, people have gotten on average 10 points smarter. There are a variety of reasons that this could be. It could be that people were malnourished 100 years ago and now they're not. So we're at the normal state. It could be that people have gotten better at taking IQ tests. It could be that somehow public education has actually made people smarter. However,
Somehow.
it's back down again. Well, I mean, it used to be better, right?
I think it's more
it,
wide scale, baseline education has increased. So if that is true, then the premise or the starting point for attaining your maximum IQ is shorter.
Well, it's like when you put a KPI on like IQ, then it gets skewed or engineered in the sense of like intelligence isn't purely okay. You're witty or solve a problem or math or you can read or write a good essay. It's like to me it's the ability to adapt, and with that it's more of like how you overcome the unknown versus just like, oh, here's like societal metrics of capability.
I don't want to go in the direction of IQ. I think we've done that before, and that one's usually very spicy. That's a little bit more spicy than I'm feeling today. So
okay. We were supposed to talk about feeding the soul.
I'll find a way to segue into that towards the end. So, because I'm already on a roll. So, the point of this it's not about IQ. It's the point of this is that it seems like there's some kind of hard limit to how smart people get. And I'm personally of the opinion that if you get, well, I heard at one point, this may be a military statistic, but the basic idea is that you can only effectively lead people who are 2 standard deviations or less below you, meaning a standard deviation in IQ points is 15 IQ points. So that would be 100 is always average. 100 just means it's the middle, right? It doesn't, the numbers are.
Uh-oh.
115, 85 to 115. So that is like 68 or whatever. It's 2/3 of people basically are of average IQ, which would be from 85, which is very low functioning, or it's like the lowest high functioning person you could have, like in the sense that they're able to do basic tasks, to 115, which is a pretty smart person, right? Like they're a person of a normal amount of smart. If you go further than that, 130 is genius level. 70 is somebody who's pretty disabled. Keep going. 145, which would be 3 standard, 3 standard deviations above the mean, would be someone who's insanely smart. 55, I think, what is that? I'm bad at math. 85, 70, 55. Yeah, 55 would be somebody who's like non-functional, right? Like not at all. They can't have a job. They can't do anything. So like 85, I think, is about as low as you can go if you can do a really basic job. You go much lower than that, you really can't do simple tasks very well. And this keeps going, right? You can have people, that effectively are non-functional whatsoever. They're like brain dead, or they have some other kind of developmental, like profound abnormalities, right? Somebody who's 160, like Sacha Baron Cohen, the Borat guy, is on record as having an IQ of like 170 or something insane. I will say this though, IQ tests, when you get above 145 or below, I think it's 55, they get really, really unreliable very fast, right? Because they're measuring your reference to the average. So the difference between, if you're at 145, I think you're in like smarter than 90+% of people, like 95 or something percent of people. If you're at 170, you're smarter than like 99 point whatever percent of people. And so the test becomes really useless. They have developed tests for like Mensa and stuff, or there's other high IQ societies and corny shit like that.
Does anyone actually take the IQ test?
Well, so the technical
unless they're trying to beat the test.
No, I mean the way you have to have it formally administered. That's the thing where like technically the Myers-Briggs you also should have formally administered, and all the online tests are bullshit. But that's anyway. The point of this is that there are diminishing returns, right? Why is it that there's not like an evolutionary selection pressure for people to be insanely smart. Why isn't everyone at 170? That's a trick question, because if everyone was at 170, they'd all be at 100. But also because it just doesn't happen that often, right? It's very weird. And so he's writing about this in the article, and he was like, okay, well, what if there was a thing that you could take that would immediately make you smarter? Like, you have, there are like nootropics and things that can, maybe increase your motivation or your attention or maybe your working memory, right? But there's nothing you can take that can actually just like make you smarter. It doesn't work like that. And so it's interesting. So he was writing this article, and he was talking about basically these balancing effects where everything that you gain, you lose something. So if you get smarter, there's a higher calorie cost, right? Your brain, chess players will literally burn insane amounts of calories just sitting there for 6 hours thinking and playing chess, right? Your brain is actually responsible for a lot of the calories that are burned. It's very power intensive, right? And so there are drawbacks to these things, but also it seems, in my opinion, and people would disagree with me on this, and I know it's a popular thing on Twitter now for people to say, oh, if you're one of the people who says that your life gets, smart people are actually less successful, it's because you're coping or something. It's like, you look at, there's a guy whose name is Mike. Shit. This is
Mike Shit?
allegedly, no.
That's a weird name.
Christopher Langan. Sorry, Christopher Langan's allegedly the smartest person alive. He's got an IQ of like somewhere between 195 and 210, which just that's
what's his name?
Christopher Langan. So let me see what that would equate to. That's seven, somewhere between like 6 and 7 standard deviations above the mean, which I'm going to try and give you an idea of how profound that would be.
But like one thing's just to talk about it in terms of like, whoa, number, and the other aspect's like, okay, what great achievements for civilization were achieved.
This is the problem, right? So he is, or for much of his life, was a bouncer. He is also he's like pretty jacked too.
So his
like
occupation is horse rancher, known for high IQ. What does he become? Brain surgeon. No, horse rancher.
He made the Mega Foundation, or he co-founded the Mega Foundation, which is like Mensa, but for even smarter people, because Mensa is just like quite smart people. Mega is like 164 and up, which is crazy. So he's been working on this scientific model of the universe. The problem with Christopher Langan, I respect him. He seems like he's working on some cool stuff. But the issue that I have with him is that if you ever hear him talk, he uses gigantic words in a way that may be technically correct, but it really, really makes what he's saying confusing. And I think he's frustrated by this, because you can see he's kind of an angry dude. He's got like a temper and stuff, and he just like is completely rejected by the scientific institutions. Because just for reference, like the average I think PhD is like 125, which is not even a genius, right? They're like 5 points shy of being a genius. So they're quite a bit smarter than the average person, but they're not genius level. And that's crazy to think about. He's like, if this is 100 and the average PhD is here, he's like literally over here or something. So that, to the earlier point, that military concept that you can only kind of lead people that are within 2 standard deviations below you, meaning a genius could lead maybe other very smart people all the way down to a perfectly average person at 100. A person at 100 could potentially lead people that are perfectly average to quite below average, right? But if you had somebody like, this is where like Nikola Tesla probably had a really hard time in life, because he's certainly like going to be 4 or 5 standard deviations above the mean, just obscenely smart. And then he can't relate to anyone because they're just like, their experience of the world is insanely different, right? Imagine the difference between like these things are hard to think about, but imagine the difference between someone that can barely perform a menial task and a normal person, right? Average. I'll use the word average, meaning like 100. Um, and the difference between the person that can barely perform a menial task and a genius, and then imagine like their life is not comparable. You can't, your processing of the world's going to be different. So imagine that, but like being that much smarter than the genius, right? It's crazy. Um, so there seem to be some kind of downsides to being obscenely smart. You get diminishing returns, right? If you look
And
at
probably
like,
a lot of mental issues.
well, I mean, and that's the question: do they come from being smart? So that's the thing. I think in a vacuum, being the smarter you are, the better. In a society, the smarter you are past a certain point, they're become things become very complicated and very problematic. So um, the nature of communication, if you had somebody that's quite low IQ, violence correlates highly with lower IQ, right? Like if you had a spectrum of crime, the crime on the lower side of the IQ spectrum is going to be violent and not well thought out, and the crime on the right side is going to be white collar shit that banks and politicians and
And
lawyers and stuff get
apparently,
away with every day.
apparently with reproduction too, right?
Well, yeah, so that's part of the issue as well. Like, uh, reproductive success does not really seem to correlate with IQ very much at all. Everyone, when they do studies on this, they say everyone wants smarter partners. In practice, it doesn't really seem like that's how it works. Lower IQ correlates with having more kids. I think that's a modern problem, and I think that's a Western problem. Except also Japan. I don't know. Let's say it's a post-industrial problem, but we also have people who walk around saying having kids is bad for the environment and lots of other shit. So there's a lot of like, without, you would call that philosophy antinatalism, which means don't have kids. And there's a lot of that going around for various reasons.
Oh yeah.
There's actually also if you look at income, the lowest income people have the most kids, and it drops, except when you get to extremely rich people, they start having more kids than average. But like people, the more you make, the less kids you have until you're in the very top, and then you have more kids. Like Elon, right? It's got fucking 10 kids or something running around.
So my grandma was born in like poverty Spain, and she has like 14 brothers and sisters. Because it's like it was just like, hey, more labor, free labor, basically. It's kind of the logic.
Yeah, well, it's partially that. It's partially so. There's a concept called R versus K selection theory in genetics, which is basically, I forget which one's R and which one's K, but one of them is have tons of offspring with very low commitment, and one of them is have very few offspring with extremely high commitment. Over the course of history, humans, even though people have this debate, humans are still very much quality selected, not quantity selected, right? Like women can have maybe a few kids at a time, but technically on average it's one. It's super high investment. It takes a year almost, right? And then you have an enormous amount of time invested into raising them. It's technically 18 years. It could potentially be longer than that, right? And that timeline actually seems to be getting longer, right? I think adolescence is actually becoming very protracted in the sense that you used to have kids that were like fucking 6 or 8 that could work a job and that were like responsive. You ever read stories about like, I don't know, during like the Industrial Revolution and the Great Depression, those kids were smart and they were functional in a way that like kids today, like 18-year-olds can't fucking work. I know people that have never had jobs or been able to hold them down, right?
At least American ones for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But then you see like, if you ever, a lot of times I'll go into like Chinese restaurants and you can see like the kids are working in there with their parents, and it's like, is that probably illegal? That's probably legal. I'm not going to rat on them. I wanted to work.
But it's
earlier.
also like, at some point you can't just say like, hey, that's morally bad versus like, yo, this is how we live. It's
Well,
like,
that's my issue. That's my issue with it, because it's like, okay, should kids be in factories? No, probably not, right?
Yeah, it's like, should Rockefeller have every family's children in their factory dying? No.
That's what I'm saying. Like, however, the idea, this is the problem with it, is like, if working class families have to like take their kids to go to work in the family store, or the family restaurant, or whatever, right? and that's not okay. But upper class people can say, oh, it's bring your daughter to work day, and I'm going to teach you about fucking like sales tactics and how to be in a boardroom or something like that. Like that's bullshit because technically that should also be illegal. But A, it probably isn't. And B, it's certainly not going to get enforced, right? So it's something that ultimately like I'm not. The point of this is not that I'm arguing to overthrow child labor laws or anything like that. But I wanted to work when I was younger, and I also did like a fuck ton of manual labor. Like I laid sod for our
Yeah.
half acre and like our neighbors, multiple neighbors and stuff like that. And I think I started working when I was like 16, 15. So
Yeah,
um,
me too. But I think I feel like the like reoccurring thing, and even I'm like realizing it more and more, and probably you too, is like this like modernity or post modernity. It's like a lot of Americans pre 1900s, like just
no,
flat
absolutely
out
not.
wouldn't be able to survive.
No, but part of it too is like it's the downside. So, for example, if everybody lived in the 1900s and never ate Doritos, right? Um, you could eat really bland food all the time. I'm not saying that people necessarily ate bland food, right? And actually, in most cases, peasant food is the best food historically, but that's a Bourdain thing too, by the way. But
Lobsters.
yeah, well, like what the fuck? I don't know. But
Hmm.
at any rate, the issue that we have in modernity is like the it's kind of like a Pandora's box thing. It's like, oh, now you've had Oreos and Doritos and whatever the lemon heads and shit, right? You can't go back to a world where you've never had these things, which makes your life permanently harder because you'll always remember. There's a tweet that I thought was hilarious. That's like, it's sometimes the person's like, sometimes I think about the fact that a peasant in the 1400s in their entire life would never have tasted as much cheese flavor as there is in one like nacho cheese Dorito, which is just really funny.
That's
You know
great.
what I mean?
I saw that meme. I saw that
It's yeah, it's but that's true, and there's something to that, right?
meme.
So it's tricky because it's like it's tricky. So in a perfect world, if let's I don't this here's something I've thought about a lot, right? If you're in Japan and there's actually this it's still around. There's a resort kind of hot spring spa hotel that has existed for like 1100 years, right? Owned by the same family. It's the oldest business in the world, maybe even older than that. I forget off the top of my head, but I know it's over 1,000 years, which is insane to think about. Like, who the fuck does anything for 1,000 years, right? Nobody, countries don't last as long as that hotel has lasted
That's
with the
crazy.
same family, right? And so
Makes
we
you
have
think.
yeah, it does. It's just a bizarre thing to think about, right? But we have there are things that you can only get out of years and years and years of commitment, and things that you can't get out of one person spending one lifetime doing a thing, right? So I've thought about this, and in the past, the way it would have worked is, hey, guess what? Your dad's a blacksmith. You're a blacksmith. Your kid's going to be one too, and that's it. There's no mobility whatsoever.
The caste
And
system.
so, well, that'd be more like the that's more like necessity caste. I mean, yes, there were castes in the sense of like you have nobles, you have commoners, right? You have the military, you have the priesthood. But it was
in
not
general,
in the
there was
way
no
that
mobility. Like there was established like
yeah, it wasn't there's no
blood
education, there's no
structures.
right. I would say it's probably like I don't know. Noble definitely correlated with like blood, but I don't know that it was to the degree in India where you have like the untouchables, and it's way India has much more of a problem with the caste system because it's still around. Like people were giving Mindy Kaling shit about it. The writer of the Mindy show, she was on The Office. She's doing that terrible, awful Velma show where that looks all stupid, um, but anyway, the so I thought about this, and one of the things when I was a kid, this is the idea that I wanted, and this is probably like a childish thought, but imagine if you had towns or cities or hubs, or let's say hubs, right? The size is irrelevant, where they were just dedicated to a specific thing. So you had like a hub that was like the medical hub, right? Where it's like this. You ever see Game of Thrones where they have the Citadel for all the maesters where they go and learn and then they get shipped out places? What if you had these hubs where it's like, hey, this is the engineering hub, this is the whatever the fuck hub, and it was like you went there, and that was the place that all the if you're a kid and you're interested in engineering, you would say, hey, I want to go get shipped off there, and they would train you to be a dope engineer, and you would get the benefits of having like something like that lineage thing, which in the world that we live in is a lot more diffuse because you don't really there's a difference between somebody like if you learn how to do music from public school and then maybe you go to college for music, the likelihood of you being the world's best musician is lower. But if you look at a lot of people that are famous, like Billie Eilish, um, um, Taylor Swift, at least had really involved parents. I don't remember if they were in the music industry or not, but I think they might have been.
I
Billie
met
Eilish,
Taylor Swift's Girl Scout leader one time.
nice. What'd she say?
I met her in Austin, South Austin. Um, she
I think
owned the bar or something. But
I think
yeah.
her parents
Anyways, sorry.
have a lake house here. Somebody told me that when we were on the lake. But at any rate, Billie Eilish, her brother, who's like her producer, was like a failed musician, and now he's more successful because of her. But a lot of times, what happens with people is they have someone in their family that almost made it. Billy Ray Cyrus, right? I think he was a one-hit wonder, or he's just like not a huge deal. But Miley Cyrus gets to be raised knowing, hey, here's everything I did wrong, go for it. So there's a huge advantage to that familial kind of stuff. Robert Downey Jr., right? A lot of those people, like Ryan Gosling and Lindsay Lohan, and a bunch of other people were in the Mickey Mouse Club, I think, which led them to have lots of acting opportunities at a young age.
We're talking about corruption and nepotism, basically, right?
No. I'm talking
or
about
just capability.
I'm talking about the good side of nepotism, which is like nepotism. The concept of just because someone's related to you, they succeed is bad. My thing is, I don't like the likelihood that Miley Cyrus is a better musician than the vast majority of struggling artists is probably high, right? In the sense that she's fluent coming up in it. She can write, she can sing on pitch and perform and do all these things, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's like there's truth to like your genetic.
I don't even think it necessarily is. I don't even think this is necessarily genetics. Now, obviously, if she was born and couldn't sing, that'd be different. But I think it's like the perfect storm of you both have the genetics and the opportunity and the right kind of like guidance. The point of this is more like if in a perfect world, we would let people like we would be able to like spot talent and then redirect it. You know what I mean? And for example, there's a famous quote which is like, how many Albert Einsteins died in a ditch somewhere because they were broke or didn't have the opportunity. And like even Einstein worked in the patent office, but like he clearly wasn't completely fucked from the jump. Whereas look, Christopher Langan, like that dude, if he had I don't know, maybe the infrastructure doesn't exist to support him, but yeah, his mom was married 4 times. Her 4th husband is the one he grew up with, who was a drunk and disappeared all the time and like beat them with a whip. They were super poor. Skipped a bunch of grades, did mostly independent study. He was teaching himself physics, math, philosophy, Latin, Greek. Had a perfect score on the SAT and took a nap during the test. And he went to the wrong college. I don't know. So that's something I think about a lot, because if the world were optimized, right, talent would get redirected to where it pays off. And that's part of the issue is you can see like the good example of nepotism would be like, or think about Forrest Gump. Who's seen Forrest Gump, right? Like Forrest's mom, I'm pretty sure she bangs the principal. That was, I think, what's implied, and that's how she gets him, even though he's like profoundly mentally handicapped. Not profoundly, he's pretty damn though. He's able to go to school and he's more successful because she makes a huge sacrifice for him, versus like there's a lot of people that have that are successful and have dumbass kids, like Succession. If you've seen that, they're almost all idiots, right? And they get this unfair advantage even though they don't deserve it. So it's like it's tricky, and I think that's, like, to be fair, is just the nature of the world. I don't think you can fix that, because the nature of people is to try and optimize for the success of their offspring, at least they should do that. The people who win do that. People who have 15 kids and don't take care of them are basically guaranteeing their kids are going to be fucked up. So there's a huge amount of advantage towards the quality
Not
over
exactly
quantity.
fucked up though. Like sometimes, like have you heard the story of Rockefeller's dad, John Rockefeller's dad?
No.
Basically, he would like beat him, tell him like just totally sadistic, maniacal. But I guess it taught them that kind of like survival, ruthlessness kind of reality.
Yeah, it's so.
You see what I'm saying though? Like it's not
Yeah,
purely
there are
like
many. The
like
problem
there's
with
a
that is there.
street smarts to some things too, not just purely like hey shelter, behind the wall kind of stuff.
There are many more people that get their ass beaten aren't successful though, so I would say that is not necessarily causation, right? Um,
Right.
and it depends. Like one person, it depends on the person. Some people you beat their ass and then they're fucked up for the rest of their life. Some people you beat their ass and then they're like more motivated than everyone else. I'm not advocating for beating your kid's ass. I think that's probably a bad thing. Um,
No,
that being
but
said,
but I
I'm
think
not going
like
to argue about child abuse.
no,
For
I'm
the
not
record.
I'm not trying to argue that. I guess like in the psyche or philosophical way, it's like how there's some weird thing about not exactly trauma, but like getting to the fringe of your mind, or that is like really the means of like transformation or changing or getting better or stronger. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what
It's
I'm trying to.
yeah. It's so in my framework, I have three values in my philosophy, which are love, will, and truth. Right. We're referring to will here, and I think will is a thing. Um, I think in most cases, people will have uh, a predisposition to either love or will as the two kind of default modes of operation, right? Um, if you're predisposed towards love, then you are, and again, these are not, you need both of these. These are both good. If you have too much of one and not enough of the other, you're going to have an imbalance and it's going to cause you problems. So, like, um, if perfect will and no love looks like a dictator, perfect love and no will looks like a victim, right? But these basically describe different parts of the social experience in the sense that um, love is love is a good strategy if you have no power, right? So one of the things Gandhi said is like, oh, if I had an army, we would have gone and fought the British, but we didn't have an army that could fight the British, so you have to do something else, right? Um, and so that's where you can see like there is this strategy, and this would be like Jesus, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, any other famous nonviolent protesters. There's a different kind of game you can play where you are actually aggressing. It's not exactly passive aggressive is not the right word because it's actively aggressive in a non-aggressive way, right? It's like actively combative in a non-aggressive way. And so it's interesting because you're optimizing for different stuff. Like if you go, do you ever I'm sure you've seen Fight Club, Dabala, right?
Mhm.
When
Great movie.
yeah, I love it. I've seen it probably a dozen times. When the guy who owns the bar comes in and starts beating up Brad Pitt, Tyler Durden, um, and he doesn't fight him back, but he just lets him beat him up. Like he uses a non-violent way of scaring the shit out of him, right? It's actually more effective than if he had tried to fight him back because maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't, right? But it's actually more effective because it freaks him the fuck out. He's like, oh, you're literally meaningless to me, right? And so that is an effective strategy as well. Both of these work for different things, right? You need to have both. You can't be, you could look at them as like warrior gardener. Like it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. But in a perfect world, everyone would know how to do both, and we would have no wars because everyone is like, yeah, okay, we're just going to garden, right? We don't live in a perfect world. That's just a fact, right? So with that, in the sense of like Rockefeller and stuff, you have these people that are extremely like have abnormal amounts of will, or like a David Goggins or Jocko Willink, or like you know any number of people. And I think fundamentally that's the difference between like engaging with love in a meaningful way rather than being unable to engage with will and choosing love as a backup strategy, right? um, Gandhi was willing to fight and was not able to. So he chose consciously the alternative, right? If you are unwilling to fight, uh, then you can't engage with will because the world is, you know, part of the world is a contest of wills. Like I'm reading this book right now. It's really, really, really good. It's called Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. Um, and so, unlike, I've been reading I'm reading a couple books at the same time, but because I get distracted. But I'm reading another book called the Consulting Bible. And then a Consulting Bible, it's a lot more about like, here's how you do strategy. Here's like how you do tactics. In Pitch Anything, it is mostly about the other people, and it's talking about um, you know, I'll try and summarize this from because I think it'll help me from what I was reading yesterday. But so, um, and this will explain the will stuff. So this is a salient point. Um, Historically, the way that I've done pitches and the way that I like construct them and do all the stuff is I'm concerned with how they are communicating the information, like simplifying it, making it make sense, making it tell a coherent story, building in like points of tension and stuff. This book, what he starts out with is saying they're going to be. Has anyone heard the word frame before?
Frame what? Frame of what?
So, like frame, like as a noun. So, frame is, let's say, so we're in a position right now in this conversation where nobody really needs to enforce a frame. Technically, because this is my event, technically I would own the frame, but this is not. I'm not enforcing the frame, right? We can debate stuff. Even like when Glenn came in and you know, said stupid shit for 3 hours that one time. I'm not gonna like go out of my way to just like force him to comply. I will engage with people where, you know, we have a neutral frame here. But in a pitch, and especially as you get to higher and higher levels of business or higher and higher levels of like social stakes, frame is something that is assessed. And so um, only one person can own the frame at the time. People are competing for the frame, and there are things that go on. This is all stuff that's happening subjectively, right? There's no, if you were looking at it from the outside and you didn't know what was happening, you wouldn't necessarily see it because it's not specifically in the words, but it's in the actions and the content and all these other things, right? So what he's talking about with pitching is basically either you own the frame or you lose, right? This is something I experienced. Like we did 5 pitches for Gravity to VCs. One of them was successful. Um, and in retrospect, the first person we pitched, which was the worst of all of them, he just like wasn't interested and he's a giant jackass about it. It's because he claimed the frame immediately. We didn't know what we were doing, so we weren't super confident about it. Or I mean, as confident as I normally am, which is like fine, right? Um, but so he came in, he's like, oh yeah, and he's clearly bored, and you know, I wasn't able to respond to his boredom effectively, and he, you know, just like lost some patience and skipped over some stuff. And it's like, okay, well, I lost because I let him be the person I'm trying to win his approval of, right? Because he has made me treat him as a greater, as a superior, right? That's what frame is. Frame is saying, I'm I'm in control. You're on my terms. We do whatever. And so there are things, basically 3 kinds of frames that will be asserted onto you, which are power, time, and analysis, right? Uh, Power would be saying something like, "Oh, it's your first time, huh? Yeah, I remember. I remember when I didn't know what I was doing." You say something like that, which is like obviously a jackass thing to say, but you're asserting to the other person that they're an inferior, right? You're getting them to accept this frame that you're providing, which is you're less than me, right?
The
Time,
basis of like how narratives are weaponized, right? I mean, like
it's that would be in the macro. So this is in the micro. This is more about like minute to
the
minute, like
concept.
personal interactions, right? So
It's
this
like
is
your word
another.
choice.
Right. Another thing that he explains is that there are 2 kinds of frame, which is basically if you are if you're Elon Musk, right, or the other guy's the richest guy in the world, but like if you're Elon Musk, you have a bulletproof thing that you have that nobody can beat you at, no matter what, right? Let's pretend Elon is still the richest, because he will be again in a year, but um, nobody's going to be able to walk in the room and try and like say, "Oh, I'm richer than Elon." Like, it's a provably false thing. However, uh, that's like broad frame, and then there's situational frame, and in any interaction, anybody can take the frame if they know how to do it, right? One of the examples that he gives is, imagine you have a guy who's a golf instructor. Um, it's not a prestigious job, and you have a guy who's a heart surgeon, which is more prestigious than most jobs. If the heart surgeon and the golf instructor were talking at a bar, the heart surgeon has a default level of frame. If they're going and the golf instructor is teaching the heart surgeon how to play golf, the golf instructor is now king of the castle, right? So the first kind of frame is power, that they're going to use against you, right? The second kind of frame is time. So they'll say something like, "Oh, we only have 15 minutes," and then you could do other stuff and be like, "Great, I've only got 10." So, or you just do ridiculous shit, and you do it in like a playful way. Because if you do it where if you get emotional, you've let them win, right? So you're like, your ability to prevent any kind of emotional reaction to what they're doing gives you power, right? And this thing I will distinguish too. Remember, love and will are two halves of the coin. Your life is both of these things. If you're hanging out with your friends, I would certainly hope that this is not how you interact with them, where you're fucking gaming them all the time. If you do that, whatever, that's your fucking game, right? But in
that's
business,
a thing in like high, in like high society. That's like a natural social.
yeah, I personally, I find that shit gross. And it's like, if you're in groups like that, you can't trust anyone. And you can see even like Succession's a great example, where they're all trying to outgame each other all the time, and they're all pieces of shit, right? Like everybody in that family sucks. Like, literally everyone on the show sucks. And it's
Yeah,
problematic too, because
well, I was just gonna say, like, that's what makes it hard for people, right? Because if you try to just totally refute that, it won't benefit you in like the competitive business money way, right?
here
So that's kind of the hard part.
here's the thought. So I've known about this kind of stuff. This is a much better book about it, but I've read like many books on like social dynamics of power and all this stuff for a long time, because like my natural level of social skills is bad, and anything I have now is only because I learned it the hard way, not because I have any aptitude for it, right? And so my theory is that if you don't know that the game exists, right? If you're like, let's say,
Which is the
you know,
Matrix kind of like idea, right?
we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So
Okay.
if you're like autistic, because autistic people just won't understand that this game is going on, because it's subjective and it's not literal, so it's going to bounce off of them, right? If you're autistic, or you're somebody who's like, maybe you were always a nerd, you were like a scrawny kid and you were bullied, and you just don't understand that this is a thing that's happening, right? Then you are automatically losing the game. But my thought, because this is a thing that works in many other fields, right? If you're an artist, there's a famous famous quote that's like, "Learn the rules like a master, break the rules like an artist," right? If you go and just start breaking all the rules of art, and you've never done art before, you're probably going to be terrible and you're never going to get good. But if you look at like Picasso was like a great, like, normal, realistic artist before he got into all this crazy shit, right? Because what he's doing is actually more complicated than the realism stuff. And so my thought is that I think there is a more sophisticated way to play the game that involves actively not participating. And I need to learn more about actually playing the game first, because I'm realizing, like, at this point in my career, that I'm running into some of these things where it's like, I don't know. I've been involved with a negotiation with one of my clients that I feel like I've definitely lost, which is not great. But basically, what that means is I'm just gonna have to leave, right? And I don't like negotiating at all. I really don't care for it, and it's not like, I understand people do it. I get it. I don't want to work with people who want to negotiate about shit. And typically, in my experience, the people that are hardcore about negotiating are also the worst people to work with. So if I can avoid doing that to the greatest of my ability, right? If I walk in
But-
and somebody,
But the bigger the money, like that's just stuff. That's like there's
there's a
you
way
know.
right now. There's a way around it, and this is my thought,
When you
right?
have contracts, dude, it's like, bro, it's just
I-
there's no way.
No, I get it, but like this, for example, I'll give you 3 examples of people that I've worked with, right? I had a guy that couldn't afford anything. I still, he's a buddy. I wanted to help him out with his getting his pitch deck together. I told him, hey, $500, we'll do it. I didn't have a lot of work at the time. I was like, why not, right? And he just stopped showing up, right? We worked on it for a couple weeks pretty regularly. He stopped showing up. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I messaged him a couple times. I'm not following up anymore, right? You didn't want to finish it. That's on you. I was doing you a favor. Then there's a guy that I worked with that needed more stuff, but he talked me to, he's a sales guy, right? He talked me down a bit. And then there's something that wasn't included. Normally with my clients, if they pay full price, I go the extra mile. I go extra 10 miles for them, right? But because he negotiated with me, when he needed something that was relatively simple to do, it's like, okay, I'm going to charge you back all the money you didn't want to pay me for the first thing to do this simple thing now, because that's what you get, right? I don't play these games, but if you want to play them with me, we'll play them. And then there's a third client who paid full price, didn't ask questions. It was one call close, right? Like they get it, they love it. I'm going to work with them forever, right? And so this is part of the thing, is that I think the highest level, there's a study that they did. I've never been able to find this again. If anyone ever finds this, please send it to me. This is like one of my absolute favorite studies that was like high schoolers, right? Imagine you have 100 kids in 12th grade. There is a spectrum from the least popular kid in school to the most popular kid in school. That's kid 1 and kid 100, right? As you increase in popularity, kids become bigger and bigger assholes until you get to the most popular kid in school. And the most popular kid in school is the most well-liked. So that, I think, is an amazing, profound little nugget of wisdom, because what does that mean? The games that people play in a competitive way, you can get results out of that at a cost, right? You can be the second most popular kid and be hated, but you can maintain your status aggressively. But the most popular kid, you can only get there by being likable, right? And so I think that these kinds of things, it's important to be aware of the power game. Like and it'll take you a very long time. You got to study, you got to like watch when you're talking to people how these things work. You're going to fuck it up a lot. You're going to miss out on stuff. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get outmaneuvered, all of this stuff. But when you're aware of these things and you choose to do things the right way, you get to do the easiest thing of all, which is not do all this fucking mental gymnastics and like out fucking alpha people. He talks a lot about like, oh, well, somebody in the deal is the alpha and somebody's the beta, and they're beta traps. Like if they invite you to their office and they make you sit in the lobby for 20 minutes, it's like, he's like, this is how you maneuver around this.
That's
like,
That's like I actually did study this in college, one of my like senior capstones, but like that's how the Russians negotiate. Like it's all about like there's no win-win. It's like, no, I win, you lose. And it's
no, I know, and it's idiotic. Like really, if you think about what a good leader looks like, it's not about somebody who's like that, right? If you only have the options between bad leaders, you want to have the best bad guy, right? If one of the arguments I've had, like the only good reason that the government is fucked up is it would be better for our government to have better psychopaths than everyone else's government. If we have to have a government with psychopaths, we better have the worst ones, right? Like I would much rather have that than the alternative.
That's such
However,
like a counterintuitive thing.
It's counterintuitive, but like you know what I mean?
True.
Like
it's like in the game theory-ness of it, yeah.
But the problem is actually I don't want any psychopaths in the government at all. Personally, I don't know about anyone else. Like I'd much rather have like people that we like in charge. But this is the thing. So power is the ultimate corrupting incentive. Like love of money, love of power. Power itself is not bad, but the desire to have power is the fucking worst. Money, I think, is a subset of that. But it's like when you can I was thinking about this the other day. It's like money. The problem with money is not money. The problem with money is that money is an abstracted representation of value. So if you lived in 1500 or 10,000 BC. Tabalo is a logger. He like cuts down trees, and I am a sheep shepherd, right? I have sheep. I can give Tabalo a sheep. He can give me some wood. I'm going to go build a house. Cool. I am doing work, keeping the sheep. He's doing work, chopping down trees. You add in money, and that's an abstraction. So I can find ways to get money without doing extra work. It took people a long time to invent a lot of these things, but you definitely can do it. And that's what banks live on right now is, hey, we hold your money for you, and then we make more money with it, and then we charge you money when you don't have money in your bank account. Like, what the fuck, you know?
So that this will historically this is like what Machiavelli wrote about, and he had two books. One book's The Prince, and it's about kind of the dark psychology of power and espionage, and a lot of people, they use that as the framing as to why it's justifiable to basically be immoral in politics. But he also wrote another book, and I can't remember the name, but he wrote about the ideal leadership and governance is purely like principled based and in wisdom, and the context of him writing that is very interesting because he was like basically kind of one of the middle nobility guys when the Medici's essentially founded modern day banking and accounting. So they figured out how they could do more currency exchanges, how they could sort of do the mathematics for organizing resources higher, through all the, European empires colonizing and gaining more resources abroad. And all the politics that were involved with that, because he was so close to the like Medici Empire and family. So yeah, it's really interesting that it's like most people always talk about, oh, the prince, he was an evil guy. He like wrote the like philosophy of like immoral politics, but he really wrote a lot about ideal politics and like the ideal wisdom and like principle driven governance.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's a satire. Machiavelli is also an ENTP, and that tells me that he is absolutely the contrarian. So, first off, Prince is great, good read, very quick. It's very small, but from what I understand, the reason why he wrote it is he wanted to give the people bad advice that sounded like the shit that you would do. I as far as I understand, it's a satire, and people don't catch that of it, and they think, oh, I'm gonna go be the prince. It's like, don't do half the shit in this book, right? Another good one though, this always gets brought up when we talk about these topics: 48 Laws of Power. This book will ruin your life for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. It's very depressing, but if you're unfamiliar, if any of these things I'm talking about are unfamiliar to you, like the nature of status games and stuff like that, 48 Laws of Power, the Gervais principle, like Ricky Gervais from the comedian, and Geeks, Mops, and Sociopaths would be the three required reading on the subject. That Pitch Anything book is pretty damn good, though. I would probably add that to the list. Okay, I gotta go in 3 minutes. I have a hard stop because I got a meeting, but I want to basically tie this one up. So, hey, as far as the last half of what we were talking about is concerned, there are two modes that you can operate in: love and will. Love is the yin, or the feminine, or the communal, or the cooperative, or the chaotic, or whatever. Will is order. It's yang. It's masculine. It's dominating. It's combative. It's competitive, right? Everyone has both of these things. We live in both of these worlds at once. They're two different ways of looking at reality, right? If you're unfamiliar with will as a concept, you should get that way. You should learn. There are status games that are going on. They affect you. If you are unaware of these things, you will automatically lose. And it will make your life worse over time. It is very uncomfortable to learn about these things. And frankly, the more you learn about them, the more uncomfortable you will get until you start to like be able to defend yourself. 48 Laws of Power is a book that is specifically designed to teach you how to defend yourself against all this stuff, especially if you're in business. If you're not in business, you may have these as like hierarchical institutional problems. If you like are in the university system, I bet you $1 million that any professors with any amount of power or other faculty members are going to be fucking assholes. They're going to be petty tyrants, right? That have their little sliver of authority they try to crush you with. And so it's important to be aware of this stuff. It's perhaps one of the most important skills you could learn. That being said, my theory, and this works, I haven't perfected this in practice yet, but it definitely works better for me than it hurts me. I believe that if you learn this stuff really well, then you will understand the way to avoid engaging with it, which is a superior form of playing the game, but is more complicated to do. And ultimately, you want to be the most popular kid in school. You don't want to be the second most popular kid in school. You want to be liked for being likable. You want to be a no bullshit person that people can trust. People will try and take advantage of that, but they were going to try and take advantage of you anyway. That is the way that they are. So, more emotionally ruin your life, Emma. It's just dark and unsettling. Gervais' principle is pretty bad too. So basically, 48 Laws of Power talks about the way that the different tactics that people use to enforce power. Gervais' principle talks about the different kinds of language that we use that indicate what kind of power people have. Geeks, Mobs, and Sociopaths, which is the least important of the three, talks about the nature of how cultures start out as cool and then get cannibalized by sociopaths as they see the potential to take over things that used to be fun and innocent. They then become like a profit-seeking thing that kills it. Like Star Wars didn't used to be cool. It's very popular now. It makes a lot of people a lot of money. So I gotta run. Good talk, everyone. We'll probably talk about that some more next week because that's a fun topic, and I'm gonna keep reading this book. So later.
Sweet. All right, man. Take care. Thank you.
Dilly dilly.
Hey guys, everybody else who joined, welcome. Emma's here, Samantha, Jordan. How you guys doing today? Hope you enjoyed the discussion. Oh, Philip has as well. Welcome, Philip. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I was just listening in.
Good.
Good conversation. Yeah, getting some work done, and yeah, it's like listening to a podcast there. Cool stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, these we do these every week. There's something going on every day. Sometimes it's more informal. Sometimes it's more structured, like Thursdays. Thursdays we just run through all the news and updates on social media. But yeah, I oftentimes will just let the guys who are running it do their thing and work in the background while listening. Pick up some really useful stuff. Garrett is a genius when it comes to branding and design. So I love that he's been doing these for the last year or so. Really. We got a lot of episodes stored on Twitch as well in the VODs and YouTube, and some really great clips of, good quotes he said. What brings you into Triba? What are you working on today?
Me personally, and sorry, just following up here. So I do cybersecurity as my main gig, and then sales and marketing, essentially coaching on the side of that.
Okay. What kind of coaching? Sales and marketing coaching, or is that two separate things?
Yeah, correct. So just still getting up and running with it. So the whole idea is to help organizations, existing companies, digitalize themselves. So I'm based out in California. Yeah, no, and I run into companies all the time where it's like, it's an older owner that isn't up to date with social media, building a sales marketing funnel, and the whole idea is to jump in there, get some stuff set up for them, and then kind of see where that takes us.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme here in Triba. We are focused on helping businesses branch into more of a digital world. Web3 is just a marketing term, but it really means the next iteration of the traditional marketing stuff. Yeah, we got a lot of marketing people in this community. We also partner with the digital marketing community. I don't know if you're in that one, but that's a great one to be part of.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. I am not.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that too, where it's like these older business owners, small business, and like they're using a system that's like 30 years old and they just haven't done anything about it for a long time. Or
you just helped somebody with that the other day, right? Or last month.
Yeah, they had what's called like a Borland database. I don't even know what it was, some COBOL database. But anyways, I just rebased it and put it in CSV, and then they can figure out a new inventory management tool to adopt. But yeah, I think that's a big opportunity though for people who don't know how to essentially start their own brand. It's like you could actually do like a seller finance, like negotiate a deal with one of these older business owners, and then
Uh-huh.
just some basic modernization techniques of like, what, standard processes and technology could like make the people labor more efficient, just on the niche or the business. So
Yeah, just so my whole idea, and it's still early stages here, but have some basic frameworks that are pretty broad and generic, but applicable to a wide range of businesses. So I'm currently working with an organization. They create medical supplies, and it's a fully
Oh,
legit business. They have
yeah.
a distribution set up with various hospitals and whatnot. Their website is very outdated, no CRM, nothing like that, no marketing. So it's a legit packaged business. It just needs some
Hmm.
polishing on the outside, essentially.
yeah, and then and it's always hard telling the older business owner like, hey, you gotta invest in the digital transformation versus like somehow it just magically happens. But yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't really magically happen.
because there's a
And
learning curve, and then usually your staff, if they've been there a long time with you, and it's kind of like a family ran, it's like
Hmm.
not very
Hmm.
innovative.
Yeah, I mean, just bridging that gap in technology. I mean, we're all pretty young here, so we grew up with smartphones, gaming consoles, different computers. But you take someone that's a couple generations older, um, just learning how a Mac works it's a massive learning curve if you're going from nothing to something.
right.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the clients I have, they still do like checks for bookkeeping because the bookkeeper is just old lady, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like can't even click an invoice link and pay. Like it's just crazy.
Sam grew up with Morse code. Not that old. It's not that old.
No, no, no. Although I do know Morse code. Scouts, baby.
Oh, there we go. Click, 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 click.
Yeah.
I send help every day. Still haven't gotten help, but no, actually, I get a lot of
Sweet.
help. What am I saying? Tribe has been extremely helpful. I love this community. Everyone here is helpful.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
So,
Are you?
Tabolo, am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So what do you work with, or what are you working on?
Yeah. So I run a business called Yeetum, and we have an advisory consulting business where I call it similar to what you're kind of doing, but an information advisor. So part of that's like IT or cloud or kind of cloud security type consulting, as well as this general concept of uh, thinking of your business or family office as like a cyber estate.
Hmm.
So with that brings like this dimension of cybernetics to like your strategy, security, and whether at a family or personal home view or at a strategic a business view. And then we have another line of business that we're working to like growth hack, this SaaS platform we built where we're just trying to basically build a community of like what I call citizen analysts, but specifically around like um, cyber and crypto and finance.
Okay,
So like
cool.
knowing open source intelligence, understanding like the monetary system, central banking system, why Bitcoin's in that idea sphere, and then just market analytics, so like data mining sentiment and trends and insider trading and like government contracts, stuff like that.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah, that's some nice stuff there. Cool.
Yeah, nice to meet you, dude.
And likewise, likewise. Where are you guys all located?
All over the world.
There we go.
Sam's in Antarctica.
Yeah, right now I'm coming to you live from the moon.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm in orbit.
In
I'm, in,
orbit, man.
I'm
The
always in
spaceman
orbit,
himself.
yeah.
No, I'm in Texas.
Launch control.
Okay, cool.
Where are you based?
So
you
I'm
said
in,
California.
yeah, San Diego.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Emma's in Cali, right?
Yeah, I'm like
Yeah.
on the opposite end though.
It's so big.
North Cal, a long state. Long
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. It's like the whole East Coast. I'm East Coast, Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was reading something how like the cartels are like stealing farmers' water and stuff over there, and they're just like not doing anything about it.
Oh shit.
I mean,
No, I
it's
moved here like
happening up here, but like it also happens down by the other border. But yeah.
some serious water issues in this state.
Really? Huh.
I mean, we were just kind of like flooding a few weeks ago, kayaking to Walgreens, but you know, now it's just frosting. It's a hard frost for the last week or so, so it's like going ice skating outside.
Got little lakes of frozen water. I really want to ice skate. I really miss snow. Eventually, I'll probably move somewhere that gets nice snow. You have like 2 feet of snow right now, B? What? That is not fair.
Yeah,
It's not
and
fair.
Right now in North Texas, it's like entirely like you can't drive. It's ice.
I really want snow. Alright, well, I guess we should probably wrap up the stream since it's 1:10. Anybody have any questions? Thoughts?
Yeah, Philip, I'll add you and connect with you. I don't know if you've done the Triba verification yet, but you knock that out. And either way, you can kind of. It's good to know more kind of cyber people in here. So.
Yeah, yeah. Send me a link. I'm new to all of this. So yeah, glad to be a part, and thanks
Yeah.
for hosting this.
Well, in the top left, you can check out the server subscription to get gold verified, you get the badge, and you get access to like working with the partners and our providers. The normal verification process you go through is up there at the top. If you go to verify here and click that, you'll well, actually, it looks like you already have the Triba role, so really it's just the gold or the regular verified. So yeah, top
Get the
left-hand side of there. What'd you say?
It's an interrogation.
Interrogation. I'll let's see. I'm looking at your roles. You got the Triba role. You haven't gotten your tags yet. You got the base verification, and then once you get to know the server, if you want to go get Triba Gold and support it, you also get access to a bunch of the business discounts. We got like a whole
sweet.
list. Yeah.
Dude, let me do some digging here tonight.
Yeah, check it out.
Cool. All right, well, I gotta bounce. Well, pleasure, everyone, and
All right.
chat to you later.
Catch you later,
Later,
dude.
man.
Thanks for joining us.
Love y'all. Peace.
Peace.
Later.
Oh, he said love y'all. What a great dude. I'm glad he's in the community.
I hate when people say love too easy. Honestly,
I feel that
Yeah.
though.
it's like, what is that easy? Come on.
You're
I'm
so
on the other end.
hard.
It's not said enough. Well, I mean, I just think if you're coming
has
in
to
as a
mean
new
something,
member
right?
here, there's different types of love though, right?
There's only true love.
Hey, I finished the affiliate sign up on Twitch. Finally. Opt out of my community survey. I hope that doesn't affect anything. I just opted out. Alright, well, we've been going for an hour here. Thank you guys for watching and participating. I'm going to wrap up the stream, and we'll be back tomorrow for the marketing updates at 12 Eastern Time. Check the events tab. And look at the gold if you want to try to support the community and get more involved with the networking referrals that happen on the back end. Connect with the business owners and make a difference in this collaborative group. we're really excited to continue developing this, and we got lots of live events planned for this year, or working on planning them. So if you were interested in doing something in your city or town or state, let me know. Hit me up on Discord, and we'll figure out how to do that as a franchise or sponsorship in your town. But we're looking to expand, and this community has just been growing rapidly over the last couple months, so we can take it to a new level with your support. And we appreciate all the Tribe of Gold members who have signed up in the last few weeks since we launched. And that's all for today. We'll catch